morning and welcome to Early Exchange with
Blessing Aiche,
Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of oil-green solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's another beautiful day, another great opportunity for us to look at issues related to business, finance, national development, and the economy. Always my pleasure to be your host, and today, as ever, this is business, this is Early Exchange, and I am Femi Ayodele. You know, Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. It's all we'll do. And the essence of our conversation is to look at what we can discuss and make our country better. Today we'll be looking at cement production in Nigeria. You know, Nigeria is being regarded as the largest production of cement in West Africa. How has that translated to good living? How has that impacted our economy? These and many more other things we'll be looking at today. And we are set to give you the best of programming. We hope that as you spend the next 3 hours with us, will make your day worthwhile. Now let's set the ball rolling with news updates as Adesua is standing by in a new studio to take us around the world with news update. Adesua, good morning, and how are you today?
Good morning, Femi. In the news, stakeholders wheat production collaborate to enhance productivity in West and Central Africa. Lawmakers call for the establishment of new federal institutions. Mozambique approves energy transition plan to attract investment. More Americans tap into retirement savings to tackle housing and medical costs. Good morning and welcome to Morning News Update right here on Souk News, your choice station for developmental news from Nigeria and all around the world. I'm Adesua Iromoseli. The Norwegian Seafood Council says Nigeria is the largest importer of stockfish from Norway, adding that Norway exported over 10,000 metric tons of stockfish to Nigeria in 2022. This revelation was made during a one-day interactive workshop in Lagos with stockholders. Stakeholders in wheat production collaborate to enhance productivity in the West and African Central. I take that again. The Norwegian Seafood Council says Nigeria is the largest importer of stockfish from Norway, adding that Norway exports over 10,000 metric tons of stockfish to Nigeria in 2022. This revelation was made during a one-day interactive session workshop in Lagos with stockholders and regulatory authorities involved in the stockfish and seafood trade. However, due to the general recession and currency-related difficulties in Nigeria, the import of Norwegian seafood includes herring and mackerel has declined significantly in 2023. The director for Africa at the Norwegian Seafood Council, Trond Kosvit, noted that stockfish has become an important part of Nigerian cuisine and expressed satisfaction with the quality of the product. The selected food price reported for October 2023, released by the National Bureau of Statistics, revealed an increase in the average price of 500 grams on sliced and sliced bread in Nigeria. The price of unsliced bread rose by 52.69% in 1 year, reaching 736.68 naira in October 2023. Similarly, the price of sliced bread increased by 45.43%, with a price of 760 naira during the same period. According to reports, various factors are cited as contributors to the increase in bread prices, including the rising cost of baking ingredients, forex scarcity, and the use of expensive diesel generators in the production process. Additionally, bakers face additional operating costs such as local government levies and food handling tests. These factors present challenges to the affordability and accessibility of bread, a staple food for many Nigerian households. Stakeholders in the wheat value chain in West and Central Africa have come together to enhance wheat production and productivity in the region. The collaborative effort seeks to create job opportunities, promote food sovereignty, and address the low level of wheat production in the region. To combat challenges posed by climate change, population growth, and urbanization, stakeholders gathered at the West and Central African Wheat Summit 2023 in Abuja, Nigeria. The summit focused on upscaling investment in the wheat value chain and promoting sustainable development of the wheat sector in the region. Inspired by Brazil's success in achieving wheat self-sufficiency, the summit aims to leverage the growing political will and international support for wheat sector transformation in member countries. Lawmakers have put forth a proposal to set up an additional 32 federal universities in addition to polytechnics and College of Education. This move follows the submission of 32 bills to the Senate and House of Representatives since the 10th National Assembly began. However, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has cautioned the government against the creation of new institutions, citing inadequate funding for existing ones. Recall that Nigeria has a total of 52 federal universities, 63 state universities, and 147 private universities. The National Board for Technical Education, NBTE, also puts the number of federal polytechnics at 40, state-owned at 49, and private-owned at 76. Still on the legislative process, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, has announced that the 10th House is organizing a town hall meeting to engage stakeholders regarding the upcoming 2024 appropriation bill of 27.5 trillion naira. This gathering aims to provide an opportunity for discussions and input into the bill after the bill is presented by President Bola Tinubu at a joint session of the National Assembly. The meeting, chaired by the Speaker, will enable stakeholders to contribute their insight and suggestions on 2024 appropriation bill. This initiative aims to foster transparency and inclusiveness in the budgeting process, ensuring that diverse perspectives are considered before the bill is presented by President Tinubu to the National Assembly. Nigeria might start to enjoy motorable roads across the country as the Minister for Works, Dave Umahi, says the rehabilitation and palliative work on all failed federal roads will commence on December 1, 2023. Umahi shared this information in a personal statement via his X, formerly Twitter account. The decision to address the dilapidated state of federal roads was prompted by numerous complaints from commuters and residents who have been affected by the poor road condition. Some of the major roads that will undergo repair and maintenance include Makurdi-Nsukka 9 Mile Road, East-West Road, Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway, Benin Bypass Road, collapsed bridges of Enugu-Port Harcourt Road, collapsed bridges of Shandam Plateau State, Abuja-Kaduna Zaria-Kano roads, and Gombe-Bauchi Road, among others. Additionally, Minister Umahi expressed his commitment to realizing a sustainable road infrastructure across the country. He outlined plans to address the issue systematically and ensure that road networks are upgraded and maintained effectively. We got a quick break now. When we return, foreign news. Stay with us. Welcome back. Remember, you can engage with us on all social media platforms. We are at Souk News. Now onto the foreign scene. The Bank of Ghana has decided to maintain the benchmark interest rate at the historic high and intends to keep monetary policy tighter for an extended period until inflation is firmly controlled within the target's range. This decision comes as the Monetary Policy Committee, in line with the prediction of all 6 economists surveyed, held the rate steady at 30% for the second consecutive meeting. Prior to this pause, the NPC has increased borrowing costs by a total of 16.5 percentage points since November 2021. Elsewhere, Mozambique has officially approved an energy transition plan that extends until 2050 with the aim to attract investment up to $80 billion to enhance renewable energy capacity and increased electricity accessibility. Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi is set to present the energy strategy to international partners and potential donors during the COP28 climate summit in Dubai on December 2nd. The plan's priority initiatives from 2023 to 2030 involves upgrading existing hydropower plants and completing the new Mfanda Nkoa hydro project to add 2,000 megawatts of new hydropower capacity. Furthermore, the country plans to expand the national electricity grid and switch to electric vehicles to reduce emission from the transportation sector. The document, approved by Mozambique's Council of Ministers on November 21st, is expected to be publicly released later this week. By tapping into its significant natural gas reserve and harnessing its renewable energy potential, the country aims to drive economic growth and uplift millions out of poverty. In another development, Zambia is facing significant challenges due to the prolonged delay in its debt restructuring process, impacting necessary investments, economic growth, local financial market, and living costs of the people. Finance Minister Sitabenko Musoko Twane highlighted these issues, stressing the negative consequences of the delay. Zambia defaulted on its debt 3 years ago and is currently working on restructuring its debt under the G20 Common Framework, aimed at facilitating prompt and smooth debt restructurings for low-income countries. However, the process has been plagued by setbacks and obstacles, including the recent rejection of a preliminary deal between Zambia and its bond holding by official creditors. This rejection raised concerns about the comparability of the debt relief offered, further complications and restructuring efforts. Furthermore, the minister expressed concerns over prolonged duration of Zambia's debt restructuring, leading to limited fiscal space and the inability to attract crucial foreign direct investments. The country is also facing restricted access to capital market, hindering its ability to fully finance the national budget. Still ahead, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, has announced the adoption of Dubai Framework, a new global framework for sustainable aviation fuel, lower carbon aviation fuel, and other cleaner energies. This agreement was reached during the 3rd ICAO Conference on Aviation and Alternative Fuel, held in Dubai just days before the UN Climate Change Conference COP28. The framework sets a collective global vision to reduce CO2 emissions in international aviation by 5% by 2030, while expanding the production of cleaner aviation energy sources supported by cost reduction, financing, and technology. The adoption of the global framework followed extensive consultation involving over 1,000 officials, investors, and experts from 100 countries and 30 international organizations. Key elements of the framework include a shared vision for clean energy transition, harmonizing regulatory foundation, implementation initiatives, and improved financing accessibility to ensure no country is left behind. Moving on, Dubai International Chamber, one of the 3 chambers operating under Dubai Chamber, has announced details to several notable achievements during the first 3 quarters of 2023. The chamber succeeded in attracting a total of 92 businesses, including 15 multinational companies and 77 SMEs, to the Emirate between January and September. The chamber has also supported the successful expansion of 33 Dubai-based companies into global markets, either by increasing their exports or helping them to establish a presence abroad. Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, chairman of Dubai International Chamber, revealed that through its services, resources, public and private sector connections, it is assisting Dubai companies to expand their businesses and capture diverse investment and export opportunities in overseas markets. In addition, the Chamber will continue to leverage its network of representative offices across the globe to attract inward investment and support foreign companies seeking to set up in Dubai and expand into MENA region and beyond. Also, Sam Altman will return as CEO of OpenAI following pressure from employees and investors after he was ousted from the position just a week ago. OpenAI, a Microsoft-backed startup, also announced the addition of Brett Taylor and Larry Summers to its board, with Taylor taking on the role of chairperson. Adam D'Angelo will continue to serve on the board. In response to the demand from the employees and the board members, Ilya Sutskever, the OpenAI board has also resigned following the overwhelming support from employees who threatened to leave and work with Altman at Microsoft. As part of the restructuring, Brett Taylor and Larry Summers have been added to the board, with Taylor becoming the chairperson. And finally, according to data released by Fidelity Investment Limited, more Americans are dripping into their retirement savings to tackle the rising costs of housing and medical bills. In the last quarter, 2.3% of workers took a hardship withdrawal, marking an increase from 1.8% during the same period the previous year. The primary reason cited for this upward trend were to prevent foreclosure or eviction and to cover mounting medical expenses. As the cost of living continues to soar, more individuals are resorting to utilizing their retirement funds in order to navigate financial hardship. The leading causes behind these withdrawals include the pressing need to avoid foreclosure or eviction, as well as the escalating burden of medical expenses. And that's it on Morning News Update. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Adesuwa Eramaseli. Early Exchange continues in a moment. Stay with us.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with
Blessing Eche,
Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very ideal and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's a bismarck. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you so much, Adesha, for taking us around the world with your news update. Indeed, you actually took us around the world. Now it's time for us to review, the major headlines trending today, for us to do what I call news analysis. You can always get the best of news analysis on Early Exchange, and this is the right place. And so if you're just joining us, get set as we delve into the news analysis. I'm not alone. Lesson is here.
Good morning, Femi.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. It's Good Tuesday.
Yeah, you look radiant as usual.
Thank you very much.
The
And,
man with the
I feel
wise
happy.
counsel.
Yeah, seated close to the wise one. Good morning, sir.
Just white hair.
Don't be deceived by that. When the show starts, you know it's not just white hair.
No, the white hair connotes strength, wisdom, and maturity.
Okay.
That's the meaning.
All three in one.
Yeah. Glad to have you here this morning as usual.
My pleasure to be here always. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, people of the world.
All right, before we go into the news analysis, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll start the news analysis properly. Stay with us.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marcy Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square. Souk enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very ideal and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, if you're just joining us, maybe you're wondering what is going on. That was a mini documentary by a content department put together by them, looking at TBS. TBS has been part of Nigerian history, and it's one of the things we're proud of, and that's why that mini documentary has to come up. Now, it's the early exchange. It's time for news analysis proper, and our in-house analysts are here. We're going to start with this interesting story, talking about the business relationship between Nigeria and Norway, where the Norwegian Seafood Council says Nigeria is the largest importer of stockfish from Norway, adding that Norway exported over 10,000 metric tons of stockfish to Nigeria. Nigerians will like to consume, your meal is not complete when you don't have stockfish, especially when you want to do your local meal with the what they call orishirishi, and they combine everything together. Well, it's too early in the morning to create this kind of confusion. But it's what we always look up to because of the nutritional value. And I realized that, the relationship between Nigeria and Norway is dated back to the 18th century. In fact, the importation of stockfish started since then. And the relationship has gone so big and robust that even recently the Norwegian authority organized a stockfish opera in Nigeria at Museum Center here. That was a few months ago. And so, but it bothers me that what is just part of our daily meal every day is being imported. We have the coastal lines, you have the aquaculture here around here. What stops us from even producing our own kind of stockfish? But the interesting thing is the technology which is missing in Nigeria. So whether you like it or not, what that suggests to you is that in virtually every home in Nigeria, you have an element of stockfish that is being imported. Let me start with the man with the wise counsel. What's your wise counsel on this, or your take on this?
I think Blessing should tell us.
Okay, well, I think that...
Buying so much of stockfish.
I think
there are different local names for it.
Yes.
In Yoruba, they call it kpanla.
Kpanla, yes. I know that's popular.
Yeah. In Igbo, I think it's okoroko. I can't remember.
Different
names.
How
household
that
names.
Is not
It's an household material.
Has gotten indigenous names.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. And then until a report like this, I think a lot of persons will not even know where stockfish comes from. The assumption would be that it's bred here, and that's why it's part of our local meal. Like you rightly said, there's hardly any local delicacy you want to make that you don't have the addition of the stockfish. So why have we not, over the years, you said since the 18th century, the trade has been on, why have we not started breeding our own stockfish here? Well, it's not just about stockfish, it's almost about everything that we consume. It's just the attitude of just relaxing. As long as you can always demand for it and then comes the supply, we do not take initiative to begin to produce whatever is imported. It has always been the culture. Is it about, you're talking about stock, is it about rice? Is it about other staples that we even consume? Once it's something that is sourced outside, it remains that way. It's only the reverse when we are the ones trading with other countries. If, for instance, Norway were the ones buying stockfish from Nigeria over these years, I know that by now they would have been breeding their own, except it's not possible for them to do that. That's the only reason they will continue that trade. I mean, look at palm oil or the palm nut seed. What happened to that? The story of Malaysia. So it's just part of us. We are kind of complacent when it comes to things like this. As long as we have a source for it, we continue going there. We do not think about creating alternative source for those things here. And that's why the price of those items keep going up. They keep increasing because we're not producing here. Even the ones that's naturally, the fishes that you would naturally find around here, do we still find them as much? Is it enough to satisfy the local demand? So we're not even looking at those areas as a way of finding solution. Except we begin to look in that way, we'll keep importing. Stockfish is just one. The other kinds of fish, the titles and all of that, they are all imported. It's until recently that, catfish has now been...
local alternatives, catfish and the rest of them.
But there are not enough to even satisfy local demand.
The challenge
there are not enough.
There's this special species of stockfish that comes from Norway. There's something special about it, whereby, you know, it, like I said, the problem is the issue of technology. They have technology that we don't have. So that's why they could mass produce these things and make it available. And these are things we need to work on.
Is it rocket science? I would like to ask.
The wise mind is smiling. I think
Is
he
it
has
rocket
another
science?
perspective to this.
When it comes to aquaculture, is it rocket science that we cannot come by that technology or that knowledge?
As we're growing up, you know, we always like things that are finished. And then he used to tell us as young children, I said, you know, it is the thing that somebody has done well that goats always like. Like someone this one. So if it is well done, you see, that's where if you see bush goats when it making a farm and do it well, you will see them there.
That's
you
the
see,
thing to learn about goats.
So he used to tell us those days as we were small, and he said, look, you will use your hand to do things. It's the one that is finished that you like. So I think that's just part of our culture, that we like good things. And we cherish good things. And when we see one, we know it. We have good taste. What that, for me, suggests is that as people, understanding our own market dynamics, the kind of things that we like, is for our people to do things well. And I think this is where we really need to continue to emphasize the spirit of excellence. And that seems to be what is missing in our equation. And it doesn't matter where things are produced, as long as they are good enough, anybody will have it. And that is what we should do. You see, as you said about just palm kernel, a whole lot of things started to come up in my head, and I started to smile. Why was I smiling? You see, the white had options, no options to buy oil from us because they were quite indigenous. That trade was horrible from us. People started to mix oil and dilute its quality. Some were even putting wax inside the, you know, those things they used to call this tin they used to use in park. They put mold on top for weight. We did that in rubber. And it just show you the level of fraudulence, really, from some of our people. And I remember when Nkrumah was looking at these issues. See, when white men saw that they were doing battle with us and we were giving them fake things, what did they do? They started to see how to also go and see they don't lose so much. And they were using big core to wrap 1 yard of cloth and sell to us back, because that's what they saw with us. Can you really imagine that even if you want to buy locally made honey today, you won't see the good one here? It's missed. Even to fry plantain chips, some people are using carbide to ripen plantain just to make money. And these are not good and edible. This is a problem. And that's why here I keep saying, and I will continue to emphasize, righteousness is what exalts a nation. Anything done well, anybody will have it. Yesterday I spoke about Bangladesh. Their products are accessing international market because they are done well. Our local artisans here, if you give them something to do, they won't do it well. Is it the contractor that will make road? So we always like to make more money than produce something that is of good quality that can access international market. I remember those days when they used to tap palm wine in my village. They will bring 1 gallon down and they will mix it with water. It will turn into five gallons. Now what that means is that by 12 o'clock, you can't drink that water again. It's completely soured because it's ordinary water. This is indigenous to us. But you know, sometimes we find a way to excuse them. And we will be painting very beautiful and good pictures of ourselves. And I think it is these issues that we really need to deal with. There were times in the 90s you want to go and buy garri in Lagos, they are using milk or rice cup. You see that they put wax inside the cup or they will hit the under the cup. So it won't be full measure. If you go to scripture, all of us are sinful. And you really wonder why we find ourselves in where we are. How do we add value? And to make things look better so that they can become presentable to the outside community. I still know, because I'm saying this thing with every sense of responsibility. If you go to the local places where we are doing garri, the one they are making that they are eating in the house and the one they are making for the market, they are two different qualities. All these things will not make international trade to prosper because somebody want to buy something that is of good quality. And of course, God has also made it possible that these people can also actually check the quality of what we are bringing into them. And the people who are there checking it, they are not as corrupt as our people. And when they see something that is bad, they will say it's bad. Nobody will give them money to tell them and say the bad will turn good. So all this character attitude, we must need to change if we have to access the international market. But that said, we continue to enjoy stockfish.
You know, the interesting thing about these economic ties between Nigeria and Norway, you know, Norway seems to be the highest beneficiary. In fact, they don't want the relationship to stop. Interestingly, they are coming to Nigeria to organize trainees for some of our, you know, stockfish farmers, and they've been doing that for years because this has largely impacted their economy. In fact, they have representatives here in Nigeria. But what bothers me is that's an opportunity for Nigerian investors to even someone should even be bothered. Go to Norway to see the kind of technology being deployed. Here we do more sun drying, you know, the manual way of, you know, producing stockfish. Maybe that's an opportunity for an investor who is watching to also take advantage of this loophole to invest. Go to Norway and see the type of technology that is being deployed into this. We have the market in Nigeria, we have the population, the demand is here. So if they can bring the technology here, what it means is we localize it and we're producing it locally. But like I said, the Norway Seafood Authority or Norwegian Seafood Authority doesn't want this relationship to stop because
want it to stop?
They are getting more returns.
If you have a buyer that is always available to purchase whatever you're producing, would you want that to end?
And give it to them. They'll be organizing, you know, CSR projects in Nigeria to cement the relationship.
We have the markets, so they should organize as well.
From us,
so of course, they will do all of that to encourage
a small country living on stockfish, and they are making so much investment in their country. One of the top-notch country in terms of all human development index in the world. The education is top-notch. Health system is excellent, and these are things that are done well, and that is the point that I'm making. They do it well, and we are enjoying it. You know, if you use it with ogbono, it matches so well.
If they don't stop taking this stockfish, then it's a big blow.
It's a big blow, or it will be a big blow because over the years we've become accustomed to the taste of stockfish. So if that is absent, if that is absent, a lot of us were born eating it. We've grown to it, know the taste. So when you take it out of the food, it's like something is missing. It's not right.
But let's continue to eat our akbarwa.
It's not even us. Until we learn how to. The thing is, we don't even look at replenishing whatever we consume or reproducing whatever we consume. And it goes beyond stockfish. That's what I see about this. Because for other kinds of fish that can be found in our rivers, that can be found even in our seas, do we even reproduce them? Do we learn how we can reproduce these things? Or we leave it to the hands of nature and expect that naturally they will be reproduced or naturally there will be a replenishment of them? Until we begin to think in that direction, then we will continue to depend on other countries, boost their economy for our food and for every other thing that we consume.
Yeah, but you see, that is what it is. One man's meal, they say, is another person's poison. As long as we continue to advocate for people to get into this business, those who are currently making so much money out of it would not even want it to end. And that is what it is. So some people are benefiting, some people are profiting. For me, I really don't have a problem with trade with nations, but I think that we may not necessarily have to do stockfish because somebody is already doing it better. But for me, is what are we going to also specialize on as a nation that we're going to deploy everything about us to do? You see, this does not actually start with just somebody jumping into a system. It's understanding that for you to be able to prosper within the international community, you really need to put a whole lot of energy in terms of research and development. That you are looking at the processes. How do we make it better? How do we make it a bigger opportunity for the globe? Because you're also looking at your opportunity for people to even take from you. Take, for example, I remember some years ago, we were having this event, and I think it was Professor Pat who told me, he said he was coming from Vietnam, and they were saying, oh, we need cashew nut from Nigeria. We are not having enough of it. The quantum that we need from Nigeria, we cannot have enough of it. So these are even areas where we could leverage, even in exporting the raw cashew nuts, without even adding value to it. But we have not been able to leverage it. We talk about, what do they call it? I'm trying to remember now, this thing that garlic. The best in the world. What are we doing with it? Able to cut it to size, we cannot. To even wash it and clean it and take it into the international
and other spices.
See, there are so many things that are local to us that if we really do well, we can access the international market and make so much money out of it. But the truth is that what our institutions of learning, I heard in the news they are talking about establishing 34 new universities. Sometimes we just look at people that they are jokers. Big jokers. Why will somebody be contemplating another university in Nigeria when the one that you have not funded them?
All right. Maybe you hold your thoughts. We will still get there. We have that story. Now let's look at what the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics is saying about the price of bread. The news is there's an increase in the average price of 400 grams of unsliced and sliced bread in Nigeria. The price of unsliced bread rose by 52.6%. That of sliced bread increased by 45.4%. Now, let me tell you the factors that are responsible. According to MBS, the rising cost of baking ingredients, forest scarcity, the use of expensive diesel generators in the production process. This talked about the cost of doing business in Nigeria, the rising cost of production due to all these factors. Bread is something that is common, whether to the rich or to the poor. It's something you easily rely on, when you need to have your breakfast or when you're hungry. Don't let us cause confusion for someone who hasn't taken breakfast this morning. But the issue is it's something that forms part of a meal every day, whether you're rich or the upper class or the lower class. Now there's an increase, which is as a result of these factors, the rising cost of baking ingredients. Some of these ingredients, like the kind of flour we use here, is still imported. Looking at the cost of diesel, in recent times because of, the subsidy whatever, which some for petrol, has increased the cost of doing business in Nigeria. You have, as a business owner in Nigeria, for you to run your generator, you will have more than 1 or 2 sets because you have to rely on power to power your operations, your daily operations. Somehow, it's taking money out of the business. And so for the person, the business owner to make money, you push the cost to the consumer of the product. And it's economic, factor, and that's exactly what is playing out. Are you bothered, wise man?
Well, I'm not as bothered as the bakers want us to believe. You see, sometimes people just want to blackmail the entire system to continue to take advantage.
But isn't this a reality? The rising cost of doing business,
you may call it a reality, but how real? You see, this is what I'm talking about. We are very good at blackmail. And all these things are made towards the fact that you have a government, probably because we are also not even strategic in the terms of the things that we're doing. And all we are looking toward is to see that people are always looking and they're advocating and see what can we quickly pluck from this government, what can we take from this government, what can this government give to us, and just for all their benefits.
But I don't think that's the case here.
But you see, what you're saying,
give us a picture of the reality. The reality is,
who is painting the picture is what I'm saying to you, because somebody is painting the picture.
No, hold on.
Okay.
If you produce something that you ought to, let's say you ought to spend 5,000 to produce a
product,
it, and now you're spending 10,000 because of the high cost. You understand? It's economical. It's a spirit of entrepreneurship to say that, okay, when you're now coming up with your price, to add the value to it so that at least you stay in business. So that's the reality here.
But that is the reality they have painted. That's the reality they have painted. And we always continue to paint this reality. And everybody is painting his own reality. Now, but what I'm saying to you, that these realities that have been painted, they are nothing more but blackmail.
In what sense?
Now, what are we asking for? We are asking for waivers, we are asking for tax relief, we'll be asking for these things. But yet, these are given, but how does it translate into the pricing for the common man on the street? This is the issue that we really have to address. Because sometimes people just come and tell you, oh, this is happening, you see, we need to do this, government need to do something. It's more than government doing something. Nigerians too also need to do something. Because government is already overburdened with so many things. We are expecting a government to do almost everything in the world, and we are not even factoring in, even common VAT that they are supposed to be paying to government. Many of them are not even paying. And yet they are collecting it and they are putting it in their pocket. These are all of issues that we must address. The government needs some money to fix basic infrastructure. The issues we are talking about, for example, wheat can grow in some of our states in the north here. Should we really be importing wheat?
At a point, the federal government even came up with the issue of cassava bread. What happened to it?
Let's even assume that there's high preference for wheat bread. It boils back to what I was talking about with the fish thing, us reproducing what we consume. So until we begin to do that, the lamentation, I think, we're not even close to the end of the chapter here. It's not as if one is spelling doom, but it's just what it is. Because as long as the sourcing of wheat mainly is done from outside of this country, the issue of forex will be there. And talking about high diesel costs, yes, we understand that there is energy issue, but the challenges that the bakers are facing is not much different from what other businesses are facing. But hardly are they in the news talking about the increase in the price. It's just like you're making people tense about this item that you produce, which is not a good thing. Worst case scenario, there'll be an increase in price, which we already see is happening.
That is exactly what they are trying to
That's
say.
where they're going. So they're trying to prepare the minds of
that.
consumers because there will be price increase. I would say go ahead and increase your price. Don't make people apprehensive over
so that all of us can
a
have
daily
peace.
consumption.
If we can buy bread, okay. If we
They're
cannot,
trying to put the narrative out there.
What is the narrative? I think this narrative has been repeated too often.
The price of bread has been increased. You know.
It has always been increased.
But you see, the point here is what we must look at. And this is where we need to talk to ourselves. In entrepreneurial study today, they talk about the principle of effectuation. If you want to start something, do it with what you have. That's the principle across the globe today in terms of entrepreneurship. Nobody is saying go and look for something that you don't have. Even if you want to start business, start with what you have in your hand. The first thing is not to go and borrow. And this is what we have been doing over time. We need to look inward. We also need to look at technologies. And this is where I keep emphasizing that if our research institutions are not doing well, to see how we can make this work. Recently, in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, Over 10 million tons of wheat was produced in the desert. In the desert. And here, all we can do here is to cry. Wolf, where there's none. So this for me is where the issues are.
I don't think we are crying. Let me take you to the next story. I don't think we are crying. Listen to this. The stakeholders in the wheat value chain in West and Central Africa have come together to enhance wheat production and productivity in the region. The collaborative effort is to see how to create job opportunities, promote food sovereignty, and address the low levels of wheat production in the region. So I don't think we're just crying. Now there's a collaboration between West African nations to see what they can do to ensure they localize the production of wheat. You're aware that the bulk of the wheat in Nigeria or in Africa is imported from Ukraine. And then due to the invasion, the Russian invasion of Ukraine in recent times has created a lot of crisis in that market. You talk about the black grain deal and all that, which the president of Russia has given his nod for that deal to take place. But because there is a crisis in a particular country, the whole Africa.
That's the point I'm making.
But I'm happy now, this collaboration.
In April this year, the king of Siacha did a groundbreaking for wheat. In September this year, they harvested their wheat. They are not looking up to Ukraine or Russia to get wheat. They are producing their wheat in their own country. All the cucumbers of this world, what they call it, carrot, distance, over 16 different fruit crops are produced locally in the UAE today. Even in the desert, that's the point I'm making. We are good at talking, facing cameras. This thing does not take so much. Put the seed on the ground, let's see the wheat and be harvesting it. Then that reduces the trouble.
I hope you are not insinuating that Nigerians are presenters if they're looking at camera.
No, I think what it means is that we do a lot of talking than actually doing something.
There's
in
no
Africa.
action.
Because this collaboration is coming rather late. When the Ukraine and Russia crisis starts, it's about 2 years, if not more. So what have we been doing the whole time?
It's an opportunity for us to even look inward, if that has been happening for months.
The war is getting close to an end. Ukraine that is fighting is still selling wheat. Russia that is fighting is still selling wheat. We that is not fighting, we cannot. This thing does not, it's not a rocket science. To plant wheat, it doesn't take 6 months for wheat to grow and produce. This is the issue. We talk too much. I was reading just now, the CBN government say all those people who took anchor borrower money, they should use their BVN so that they can be deducting their money from their account straight. Because the issue is just about talk. We like to showcase talk. And I think we must get beyond talking and start to act. Even we who are journalists are even giving some fillers to this kind of conversation. Because we are looking at it, this, if you want, there are some grain that take 3 months to produce. The land is there. The grains can be bought. Somebody just need to cultivate this thing and then we start to harvest. And then we start to see the expansion. What I want to hear is that in the next 3 months, we are saying, okay, the quantum of import of wheat from Ukraine or Russia has gone down. We should be able to take advantage of the market. And that's what we have not leveraged on. We must not begin to talk. We talk too much. My auntie will say there's no verb in our talk.
All right.
So it's a verbless, it's a verbless talk.
All right, let's see what
That's
we come out
something.
of that in a few days. Now, let's go to the next story, which you were passionate about to talk about. So you have the floor now. Lawmakers have put forth a proposal to set up additional 32 federal universities in addition to polytechnics and colleges of education in Nigeria. Proposal for 32 federal universities. You wanted to talk about it, now you have the floor. The wise man, go ahead.
No, what I wanted to just say is simple. Yes, there are pressure for people to say our people also need university. I've said it here on this platform some 2 days ago. We have one university in Kigali, University of Kigali, but just having colleges and campuses in regions, that's enough. Why do we need to build new university when even the one we have, we cannot fund it? Yesterday, the chairman of ASU complained that Jakpa syndrome had killed the university because there are no longer university teachers in the university. All the university teachers, they have Jakpa. They should be looking at it. How do we fill the gap in these institutions? How do we encourage that we are paying ASU well, or academic staff of university, non-academic staff of university, we are paying them very well so that we can retain the best brain in the country? That is what should be the concern of those who make law. It's not just putting one structure in one village and then you just want to go and show off. When I was a lawmaker, I brought a university to my village. That will not help us. Where we are today, we're already in a fix. There is nothing that said that Nigeria must continue to produce, graduates. The whole world has since moved from certificates. People are talking about skills acquisition, what you can do with your hand. That's what people are emphasizing. We should begin to see how do we begin to empower the already existing university with these skills acquisition centers. How do we see that our universities start to build aeroplane, they start to build motor cars? This should be the concern of the legislature, not starting up new structure. Honestly speaking, and I think that as the people, we must understand that, look, there's serious business that's facing us. That we are losing out on so many things. We are having graduates that are not employable. And this is because we are not even investing in the lives of those who are supposed to be mentoring our children. They don't have good equipment to do their work. And yet, all we can think about is is there a state in Nigeria today that does not have a federal university?
There's nothing actually wrong in having more, but the challenge is the funding and the process it will go through. Because for every...
That is wrong. If you have not funded what you have and you are building a new one,
I agree with you.
Everything is wrong about it.
Well, not necessarily wrong. It just means that it will take a lot more to make it happen. Because when you have a new university, you need to have all the courses accredited, and that takes a whole lot of time. So it means that people who are there may not be able to do some courses. It takes quite a lot of time. But if the funds and the proper planning was there, it means that we'll strengthen the already existing ones. Because the truth is that the already existing universities, the numbers that we have, cannot take the number of candidates that are turned out every year from JAM seeking admission. That's why you have schools having quotas, and when it's filled, they don't take more. But if we have more, it will take more, because yes, it's not about certificates.
It's
but the
not
thing is,
about people applying to go to university. The question must get beyond this. Even those who have spaces in the university, the few ones that have spaces, after they competing to get spaces in those universities, we are having graduates in Nigeria today who cannot construct a full sentence.
no doubt about that.
Now, what people do elsewhere, with university education, is to see that the very best of your best are the one that goes to the university. You create other technical institutions where people can acquire skills, where they are competent. They may not have. University is supposed to be a research institution, for God's sake. It's not just to give certificate to people to be looking for job on the streets. We must understand the concept. Now, if you don't know the concept on why universities are established, we will be moving around this terrain.
But the thing is, whether or not it is universities or it is polytechnics or it is colleges, more institutions are needed. But the thing is, we can do both. It may not be 35. It may be 10 added to the ones already existing, but we still need more institutions. That's just the truth from where I see it. Because we have more people, because even if you employ new lecturers now and you strengthen the university, there is still the capacity that they can take. They can't take more than a certain capacity. So we need more to join them, whether they're going to be polytechnics or they're going to be colleges of education. We still need more.
No, we don't need more.
So what happens to the other persons who apply?
It's the figures that you have to look at. The figures. Look at the data before you put the data on the ground and see who are seeking. And look at it, the number of people who are currently leaving the system and they are filling up the spaces. Now, if you even think about want to build, also, how do you expand the capacity of what you already have? Are we even thinking of expanding what you have to accommodate these students? This is a question.
I think
we have new universities that don't have up to 1,000 students.
I think for
so this is issue is expansion. You can be talking about expansion, not building new institutions.
So they can be like satellite campuses of the already existing universities.
You see, you can call it by whatever name. Let's even expand and invest in the one that are there.
Let's be more strategic about it. The issue is, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Let's make it better.
Yes, but you also need to create room for the other persons who are coming. Else you may just be denying some people access to education.
All right, let's look at
education does not stop at university. It stops at primary school. You see, its ability to read and write. The truth of the matter is that we cannot continue. You see, we deceive ourselves a lot. And this is my real worry. If you go to what we are producing currently, they cannot compete outside.
But even at the primary school level, does society create room for those who got to primary school level? Does it even have a place for those who got to just secondary school?
Yes.
Where's the place? Someone comes up to tell you, I can read and write, but all I have is my primary school leaving certificate. Do you consider that person educated? What kind of job can that person have? Even for skill acquisition, do some skills even make the entry at that low? So that is part of the issue. We need to make it accessible for all as much as we strengthen.
Where we are today in the world, the place we are today in the world, that's the point I'm wanting you to understand. There is nobody anywhere in the world today who is hiring certificates.
All right, let me come in here.
People are only hiring what you can do.
Allow me to be the umpire. Let me come in here. All right, let's move on to the next story, which is very critical. It talks about the 2024 budget. The Speaker of the House of Representatives has announced that the 10th House is organizing a town hall meeting to engage stakeholders as regards the 2024 budget. You are aware that the President is to present the budget to the National Assembly tomorrow. Well, this time around we're looking at that's 27.5 trillion. Unlike that of 2023, which was about 21 trillion. And so this time around, but the good thing is we've been able to, which is one remarkable thing the former president did, for us to have been able to return our budget cycle to January, unlike before where it used to be March. And so if this is presented tomorrow, we're hoping that before the end of the year, this can be approved, and then the year 2024 can kick off with the budget being in place. But for now, it's still an appropriation bill. What do you think, quickly?
Yeah, I think it would have been better if this town hall started in good time. We are presenting the budget tomorrow, and then of course we are already in December. This thing has to go through a very serious scrutiny. And I really advocate for Nigeria to begin to do performance budgets so that we can have measurable metrics to look at our budgets in the face. This way of preparing budget, which we currently do, is not sustainable in the longer run. We must have a budget that is, zero budget is good. But it says assume that there's nothing, but at least we have some things. So that we can put our resources in things that are critical and important, and then see that we are not funding luxury, we are not funding liabilities, and then of course things that can actually make the economy to grow is where this money is channeled into. That for me will just be what is right to do.
Are you excited? Or that's going to present it tomorrow?
I'm not excited. I'm only hopeful, hoping that it won't be a repeat of what we've seen, budget being presented in November, in December, but yet doesn't get passed until even almost the middle of the year. So I hope that it not be a repeated situation. And I'm hoping to see difference in the constitution of the budget, what constitutes the budget actually. Those are the areas that I'm looking at.
All right, I'm very sure by tomorrow.
MDs will find it very, very convenient to defend this budget before the committees of the National Assembly, and don't see it as witch hunting, and they should be able to tell the committee what they intend to do with the money, and then of course make it justifiable.
I'm quite sure the head of these, the heads of these MDAs, they are watching, and so your wise counsel would definitely get to them. Thank you so much, Dr. Idelza, for spending time with us as always.
My pleasure.
I'm blessing you for providing your insight.
Thank you, Femi. Thank you for watching.
All right, let's go on a short break. Our big story today has to talk about the cement production in Nigeria. We want to go back to history to see what has happened to cement production, what is happening presently, and what we need to do as a nation to tap resources inherent in cement production. That will take place after this short break. Stay with us.
Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's still Early Exchange, and if you're just joining us, what a good time for you to be on the program. We're just starting, we're just starting to talk about our conversation for today, which is our big story. I always call it the big story because the essence of our conversation is to shape policy and advance development. We'll be looking at cement production in Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest importer or producer. Nigeria is the largest producer of cement in West Africa. How has this translated to a better living, or how has this improved the economy of Nigeria? And that's why we're having this discussion. To help us, shed more light on this, we're being joined by a chartered estate surveyor, Mustafa Iwenla. Mustafa, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Good morning, Femi. Thank you for having me.
If you can hear me, Mustafa, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for having me, Femi.
Are you ready? Can we start the conversation now? All right. Now, let's look at cement production in Nigeria. You've been in that terrain as an estate surveyor. You've been able to handle several projects. I would like to have your take on cement production in Nigeria, for you to look at the quality of production, the process, and do an overview and assessment of cement production in Nigeria. What would be your take and your observation?
Yes, thank you for having me once again, Femi. This type of discussion for me is a very germane discussion, as it's centered on a very critical part of our country, which is cement production. It is very obvious from your opening statement that Nigeria as a country happens to be one of the biggest countries in Africa that produces the largest cement. As a matter of fact, Dangote group of company is one company that has, continued to put us on the forefront and on the map of West Africa in terms of cement production. Considering the amount of metric ton produced by Dangote a year, which is over 28.5 metric ton a year, I think that we are doing so well in that aspect. But my worry and my major concern is how we're able to continue to sustain that momentum. Whether you like it or not, for those of us in the built industry, cement happens to, but if you look at the state of things in the past few years, has continued to skyrocket. From what we had a few years back, I could remember vividly when I started this practice of building construction some years back, a bag of cement only cost us about 200 naira, 500 naira per bag. So if you look at what has happened since then and now you can only, the cheapest bag of cement you get now will go for nothing less than 5,000 or more per bag. And this are one of the challenges that is facing us as a country. We are very limited in terms of our manufacturing capacity. We produce the sand we use for us in Nigeria. Virtually all the materials that you are using for that development project is imported. Only the cement and the sand and the stones that we use are locally made here. So the concerns of major stakeholders in the built industry is, why does cement continues to go up in terms of the pricing? And like I said, there's a lot that the government has to do in this aspect. Price of cement, as a matter of fact, needs to be subsidized from the government angle. The reason why we have 28 million housing deficit is not because of the fact that there are no jobs in Nigeria. It's not because there's no money totally in Nigeria. Yes, things are hard, but because the overall cost of production for real estate developers, personal real estate developers, private real estate developers, and a lot of stakeholders in the built industry, the overall cost of production of producing a house, of building a house is very, very overwhelming. Now, if you want to look at the process involved in building a house, you will see that almost every part of the materials needed, in most cases, has to be imported, aside from the cement that I've mentioned that is locally fabricated here. So, in order for us to really do well in this sector, there needs to be a lot of public and private partnership with manufacturers. And how many, so if you want to, even want to look at it, how many cement manufacturers do we have in Nigeria? Very limited, very few of them. Very few of them. So there needs to be a lot of private engagement also to enable local manufacturers who are able to also, come up with this capacity of, manufacturing cement, such that the overall cost of development for builders, can totally go down. We cannot have these local materials there and then we have cement going up as high as 5,000 naira per bag. All these will contribute to our housing deficit. The cost of acquiring houses will continue to be very expensive. The dream of owning a house by well-meaning Nigerians will continue to be a mirage if something is not done very critically. And I also think that the government also needs to help these private manufacturers to give them a sort of soft landing for them to be able to have these materials manufactured locally at also a subsidized rate in terms of the input level for all materials needed to manufacture a bag of cement. So that's my take on that.
The challenges in cement manufacturing. You're talking about the government subsidizing, but does that look like something that is quite feasible, given the fact that even for petrol, we just have the government remove subsidy? But what are those challenges really with cement manufacturing? The raw materials we have here. So what could then be the issue?
Okay, so for me, I want to believe that the major challenge that any manufacturer has, if you want to narrow it down to what it takes to be a manufacturer in Nigeria, the major challenges that they have is funding. Funding is a very critical issue. A lot of these manufacturers that you see, aside from the high-end manufacturers like Dangote and Lafarge, who have the capacity to go all the way, a lot of them start this manufacturing business and do not even stand the test of time because of funding. It is not an easy task for anybody to start in a manufacturing business in Nigeria. A lot of industries are battling with backlog of loans. A lot of manufacturing industries, away from only cement, manufacturers are battling with a lot of, they are battling with fighting from how to settle one loan to another. The Bank of Industries, for me, I think are doing so well to disburse loans to well-meaning Nigerians who have verifiable businesses, to pushing the effect of the involved in the process of manufacturing. But then I think that, like I said, funding is a major challenge. So these manufacturers will only sell based on what they produce. A manufacturer cannot produce a bag of cement at the rate of 4,000 naira and sell the same at a lower price. Of course, he wants to make profit. So if he makes a bag of cement, if the cost per unit is 4,000 naira, he wants to make at least 500 naira again or 1,000. For a reasonable time. Because if you sell lower than your cost of production, you will run out of business in little or no time. So I really cannot blame the manufacturers. But what I can say is that the government needs to be able to come in and make the cost of production and also make the overall, function well without any fear of overhead expenses and going bankrupt.
All right, let's look at the raw materials for the production of cement in Nigeria. The major raw material has to be limestone, which is readily available in Nigeria. You have it in Kogi, Sokoto, a lot of states in Nigeria. What kind of incentives do you think the federal government can come up with to encourage the local production, more production, when it comes to the issue of limestone and for it to be explored so that cement production can be better for it?
Okay, so the limestone being a very critical, material for the production of cement. The process, so when you extract limestone, there's a process it takes for you to be able to convert it to the finished product where you're able to now use it to manufacture cement. So there's going to be extraction, there's going to be labor, there's going to be the aspect of equipment, the tools you need for that conversion. If you go to areas where they have quarries, where they extract the rocks and demolish it from one site to another, there's a lot of process that goes into that. I have visited one or two quarries in different parts of Nigeria, and you know that the total cost of manufacturing cement, the process of converting those stones to the point where you are able to mix them up with the cement, and all this would not happen without having the necessary tools. So now when you look at a bag of cement, a lot of items were used to produce that cement. Now, if you really want to talk about quality, if certain manufacturers will cut corners, where they are supposed to use a certain ratio of limestone, they will cut corners. And when such things are done, the quality of cement will be terrible. And when it's put into building a house, that's why we continuously have cases of building collapse because of the quality of materials used. A house would never collapse if the quality of materials used to build a house was good in the first place. But the reason why manufacturers would likely cut corners is because of the total cost of production. When the total cost of production is too much for them, from the limestone, even to the water, even to because you cannot manufacture anything without water. Now, a lot of times, these manufacturers have to be the ones to generate their water for production because of the proximity, because they're of any kind of product, are the ones that will generate their water by themselves. They will generate their power by themselves. So a lot of effort goes into production of cement, not just the stone, even the power to do the mixing, even the water to do the mixing, and even the human efforts. So when you calculate all that, when you calculate all that effort that goes into it, if care is not taken and the government is not able to step into this matter, by the end of this year, a bag of cement will be sold for nothing less than 10,000 naira, or by the end of next year. This year has ended already. But we can see what happened by the beginning of this year. Beginning of this year, a bag of cement was sold less than 3,000 naira. Then it kept going up. It kept going up. And this whole issue started from the time of Corona. I remember that I had a project I was doing at that time, and I came back because of Corona, because of the restrictions on movement, the price of, because manufacturers are going through hell trying to move their items, their production material from one point to another. The price of cement skyrocketed since then, and it has never come down. And very sadly, and or rather very unfortunately, when prices of materials go up in Nigeria, it never goes down. That's another angle that the government needs to step in. So even when fuel subsidy was removed very recently, the prices of cement has gone up, and I do not blame the manufacturer. So there is the matter of trickling down. So whatever happens at the top trickles down. So when government policies are not so favorable, this is what happens. And like I said, I do not blame the manufacturers, but a lot of everything rises and falls on the government. Something has to be done. As a government, does the government even have a manufacturing industry where cement is produced? No. A lot of these industries where cement are produced are privately owned. Same thing goes to our refineries. When you talk about the fuel subsidy that was recently removed, all our national refineries are not working. Most of the time, infrastructure is a big problem in this part of the country. So infrastructures for private manufacturers is a problem. So that's why a cement manufacturer will say, this is the amount I spent per unit per unit for producing this material, and I can put any price I want on it because I'm the one that produced it. I know the strength and effort that went into it. And you really cannot blame them because those places are not totally regulated. So a manufacturer who produces a bag of cement for 4,000 naira, how can the government regulate such person? He needs to make profits. He needs to make profit. So if the government do not come up with palliatives or measures to say that, okay, this is what can happen. When we have these manufacturers, when we have them plenty around, there's going to be competition. It's going to be highly competitive. But where we have fairly less than 10 or 12 manufacturing companies producing cement, there is a problem. And now we're still talking about our deficit. We are right now, we are about almost 28 million housing deficit, 28 million. So that means about 28 million Nigerians are homeless. That's what it means. And we're just a population of 200 million, slightly over 200 million. So there's a problem. So to fill that lacuna, to fill that gap, something has to trickle down from the top, from the production of cement to production of other building materials. Aside from cement, like I've said earlier, cement and sand and stones, a lot of the things that we use to produce our houses in this country are imported. So even the cement that we produce, we cannot even subsidize the price. From the nails we use to build houses, from the wood, from a lot of times are imported. So the cement that is locally made here is even too expensive for builders to afford. And that's a problem because without a good cement, that's why you see a lot of substandard cement. And that's why you see building houses collapsing in different parts of Lagos and Nigeria. because there were substandard materials being used. Look at the recent one that happened in Kogi sometime last year. In a high-end area such as the Kogi, it tells you that corners were cut and something was not done properly. Thank you.
Look at the price of cement. At the beginning of the show, it was already established that Nigeria is the largest producer of cement in Africa. And Nigeria exports cement to destinations in Africa such as Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Cameroon. In 2022, actually 5.3 million tons of cement were exported to other African countries worth $1.2 billion. But the price of cement in Nigeria is higher than some of those countries. For instance, in Nigeria, averagely a bag of cement will go for about $7 to $8, but in Ghana, it's about $5.10. In Zambia, $5.95. In Kenya, it's about $6.50. It goes on like that. What do you make of that?
So that's a complete irony. So the country where the cement itself is manufactured is paying more. It's paying more to buy a bag. Meanwhile, the country where it is being exported to is paying less. So that just goes to show that there's something wrong with there's something wrong with the production industry in Nigeria. When you export a certain commodity to a different country and a different terrain, a lot of times their government steps in to regulate it, to tell you, Mr. Man, this is the price that this thing can be sold for here. It is either you take it or leave it. They try to see how they make life more meaningful and more, conducive for their own citizens. Because you cannot, even before you get the license to import such materials to those countries, there must have been some negotiations that must have happened between you and the government. You don't just carry your cement and say, I'm going to Ghana without having some negotiations with the government. So at that point of negotiation, that's when the pricing is fixed. That's when the pricing is fixed. And you as a manufacturer also, you want to extend or expand your potentials in which way your product can get to different parts of other countries where you can make profits, because it's not only in Nigeria that they use cement. But like I said, so those price the variation in those prices must have happened as a result of the negotiations from the host country where the items are being exported to and the manufacturer. That's why you see those variation in prices. But it's still, for me, it's still a complete irony for me that the country where it is being manufactured is paying more than the country where it is being exported to. So for me, that irony is one that I'm still trying to unravel.
All right, great. We go on a short break now. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with our special guest. Mustafa is still here with us via Zoom. When we return, our conversation will kick off. Stay with us.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Masi Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souk Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
Energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, indeed, our obligation on this program is to shape policy and advance development. That's exactly what we're doing with our big conversation today, looking at cement production and distribution in Nigeria. Nigeria is reputed to be the largest producer of cement in West Africa. We have our guest and he's still here with us. We have Winla Mustafa. He's still here with us in the studio. He's a chartered estate surveyor. He's been talking about the issue of pricing of cement in Nigeria, factors responsible for it, and what should be done to change the narrative. Mustafa, glad to know you're still there with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. Thank you.
Right. Let's look at a critical issue that stakeholders in the cement industry are complaining about. Recently, the Cement Producers Association of Nigeria, they had to petition the president about the monopoly in that industry. When it comes to cement production and distribution in Nigeria, few names, come to mind. Just about 3 of them. I don't want to mention names so that I won't look as if we're marketing them. But what's your view on the monopoly in the production and the distribution of cement in Nigeria, looking at the dominance of the big names, which has adversely affected that industry? What's your take on that?
So I mentioned earlier during my presentation that a lot of things are wrong with our perception and mindset in how we approach different issues in this country. Yes, the monopoly is very obvious. I know investors who have ventured to go into cement manufacturing, and even to get the license is the problem. That's just to further, lay credence to the fact that we politicize every part of this country. We politicize very critical sectors, very critical ways, very critical sectors that will help well-meaning Nigerians to help have a better life. Yeah, so it is obvious that, like I also mentioned, that we have very few manufacturers, and I'm sure it's quite unfortunate. But I don't know what the government is doing about it. And I know that nothing happens without the awareness of the government. You cannot monopolize that kind of very critical sector of our country, of our economy. Cement manufacturing happens to be something that should be, that sector should be a sector that should be very available to well-many Nigerians who have the capacity, who has funding to go into it. And the reason why cement manufacturers will keep coming up with different prices, you wake up this morning, it's 5,000. Tomorrow morning, you suddenly hear it's 6,000.
There. Oh, I think the network is
Yeah.
playing a trick on us. All right, he was talking about addressing the monopoly in that industry. In recent times, when you talk about cement production in Nigeria, because I don't want to mention names, certain names will come to mind because they've dominated that industry in the last 5 to 10 years. Now, the essence of introducing one of these major players is to see how the person can even crash the pricing of this production and even help to even commercialize the production. But unfortunately, over the years, the opposite happened. Recently, one of the top players had to reduce its price. That created a panic in the market, to create a kind of, game changing in the market. But the issue is the monopoly is still in existence because the market is being controlled by some certain companies, few individuals. I remember a few weeks ago, the president of, cement producers, as the association related to the producers of cement in Nigeria, had to petition President Tinubu, had to ask him to intervene to ensure that this monopoly or the dominance of these big names, is broken. And the impact on the market is for, like he said, for those who have the money, they have the capacity, they are not being given the opportunity. There should be a level playing field for everybody. As long as you have the capacity, you have the money. Because the truth is we have the raw materials here. They are readily available. And so we need more people to come into that sector, more investors. Not that the focus will be on the big three or the first person. Because, hey, we have the market here in Nigeria. We have the demand, we have the supply, and then we talk about Africa. Nigeria is the first to reckon with. So why limiting it to certain few individuals because they are closer to people at the corridor of power, closer to the presidency and all that? But I'm happy that the president is looking into that now. Let's hope that we'll see maybe more licenses will be granted to people who are capable.
We hope that the licenses are granted, but it doesn't just stop at giving licenses to people to come into the industry. They will need other things. If there are incentives given to the big players, then that incentive should also go to all of those who are players. What is it that has enabled the big players to thrive over the years? If there's a support that the government can give, then of course it should be given to every other person. A level playing field, like you said, it's needed, because when you have monopoly, it's like you have a cartel controlling a particular sector. And when that happens, it's like a hostage situation. They determine what happens. You do not have an option. But if you make it free and fair, you ensure that the competition is fair. You do not have unfair trade practices. Then, of course, you have growth in the industry. More players will come in. It will be a thing of demand and supply. And as the pricing will be a reflection of the production cost. But as we see now, exactly, market forces, but as we see now, yes, there are issues with the production regarding to infrastructure, the cost of production and other things. But the price is not the actual reflection of it. Because if for the producing country, if you can have it more expensive than the countries that are exporting, then it shows that something is wrong somewhere. So the market needs to be free for all, and government will need to come in by way of regulation, by way of support. Financing is one thing that Mustafa has actually talked about, because the amount of finance that you have determines the muscle and the strength that you have in the market. So if that muscle is extended, maybe through Bank of Industry or the development banks or even the commercial banks, then we could be on our way to ensuring that the market is wide enough for the players to come in.
That's great. Let's take the discussion back to our special guest. Atlanta Mustafa is back. Mustafa, glad to know you're back with us.
Yes, thank you very much.
So sorry, the internet played, its trick. It's here. But let's go ahead. You were talking about the dominance of the big names and then the monopoly in that industry. So you can go ahead with your thought now.
All right, so the monopoly in the cement manufacturing industry obviously is something even a little child knows about. And it's not because we do not have other interested manufacturers who wants to dabble into that business, but because of the deliberate attempt of not giving other people licenses to start manufacturing cement. That's why we have this surge in cement price. If the supply was high, if there was enough supply, of course the prices will go down. But because we have very limited supply, that's why the few cement manufacturers we have now will wake up one morning and say, guy, let's raise the price tomorrow morning without any formal announcement, without any formal notice. The price you buy cement today, tomorrow morning is different. The next morning is different. That's because there's no competition. There are fairly about 4 or 5 of them. And even if you don't mention names, everybody knows. So the government needs to step in this. This monopolies should be stopped. I know investors who are willing to come into this sector and manufacture at a rate where cement can be brought back to 3,000, the way it was 2,000 naira per bag. But because of this monopoly, the price keeps going up and the government is there doing nothing. So for me, as a government of the people, as a government that really has the interest of the people at heart, whether you like it or not, housing is a very critical part of any economy. Our housing sector contributes a lot to our gross domestic product, GDP. You cannot say you are a right-thinking government. You cannot say you are a right-thinking government and not invest so much in what we have in terms of housing or cement. Because without cement, you cannot build any house. Gonna do wood by just going to the bush, cut woods, and they build houses. The first story building in Nigeria was built with wood, no cement. All true, no cement. Before it was later republished. So these are issues that I think that the government of the day needs to step in to salvage the situation for us. We cannot continue to buy cement at the very height that the overall cost of buying houses or selling houses will not be alarming. Now, our housing deficit keeps going up because the overall cost of production of building a house is alarming. So whether we like it or not, that monopoly must be stopped. We need other players, other very key players to come into the sector and make this manufacturing industry of cement very, very welcoming, such that the supply can be high. In a place where you have only one manufacturing or only one brand carrying cement from different parts of Lagos to different parts of the country, to the east, to the south, to the north, to the northern part of the country. That's because, so are you telling me that we cannot have other cement manufacturers in the north? Are you saying that we can have other cement manufacturers in the west, in the east, to the point whereby they have to carry the same cement from one state to another? That alone will attribute to the overall cost of buying it, because they want to factor in the cost of transportation, which will sum up a lot. And at the end of the day, it makes life very difficult for builders. And when builders cannot build, then where is the houses? How do we solve this lacuna in terms of our housing deficit? A lot of Nigerians will continue to be homeless. A lot of Nigerians are not even living in comfortable houses. That's why some people say their houses, their homes. Some live in houses, some don't even live in anywhere at all. They just put their head somewhere and sleep, because the overall cost of building a house is very expensive. So all these will attribute to it. So whether we like it or not, the government needs to rise up. We cannot continue to do a thing the same way and expect a different result. We need a different approach to the cement industry, whereby our cement can go back to a very affordable price as it used to be, whereby at some point a cement was a bag of cement was 150 naira per bag, but it kept going up. So something is just wrong with that sector, and I think that monopoly is one of the critical problems we have there. So the few cement manufacturers we have now have become cabals of themselves. Thank you.
All right. So going forward, what would ensure sustainability in the cement production in Nigeria? It's good that we have the raw material. I keep going back to that because that is the basis. Once you have the raw materials, everything should have been easy. So what would need to happen? We've talked about the monopoly needing to break, but beyond monopoly, what else needs to happen?
So away from the monopoly, like I said, a lot of these manufacturers will not do anything by themselves without a sort of discussions or negotiations with the government. Yes, we have all the raw materials, no doubt. We have the sand, we have the granite, we have everything is locally fabricated here. But like I said, one of the major challenges that these manufacturers have, that I want to believe that they have, which is the reason for this, is because they source for funding by themselves. So and when you do a sort of personal funding for a certain production, you'll be left with no option than to put your pricing based on what you have produced. If the government can say, okay, you need 1 billion to produce how many metric tons? Okay, out of that 1 billion, we're going to come in, let's give you 500 million. You come up with another 500 million, and let's join merger, and let's see how let's support you with this amount where you can pay with a very little interest at a very longer duration of time. If you look at the interest rate from CBN now, according to the one that was reviewed this day, is about almost 17.85%. That's CBN rate. The bank rate is way higher, over 24%, even more. So those are issues. So I just think it's the issue of financing and funding. So aside from that, the government also needs to come into the negotiation. The government do not leave these developers to come up with just one price overnight and just leave them to start. This is a country that we have all the rules and regulations. We have all the laws. The laws are there in terms of production. We have the Standard Organization of Nigeria, the SON. What are they doing? If you say a manufacturer wants to cut corners to make a substandard cement, that's the work of the SON. Because you think that you want to make substandard cement so that you can make a higher profit, that's why the SON needs to step in. So there are a lot of issues surrounding this sector that needs to be plugged.
All right, talking about the issue of funding, there is a fund or a funding scheme domiciled with the Bank of Industry called the Cement Technological Fund, and it's to the tune of 13.2 billion naira. Now, recently, the Cement Producers Association of Nigeria have had reasons to complain about the disbursement of those funds, about the transparency, and now they are calling for a probe. Would you agree with that? And then do you think the fund has been justified? The purpose for which this fund was being created has been justified?
So I know that the Bank of Industry, being a federal government bank that looks into all these issues with the manufacturing industries, I've had a lot of dealings with them. And I know that there are certain criteria that you have to meet up with as a person or as a manufacturer to be able to be part of that, that scheme. So yeah, but the extent that scheme has gone is what why I cannot really talk about. But I know that there are certain criteria that you must meet up with for you to be able to be beneficial to that scheme. But like I said, a lot of these things has to border on having an enabling environment. There's nothing such as having interested, investors who are willing to go into a certain level of production and making that process very seamless for them. If you have to go into the manufacturing industry in terms of cement, and the process of getting the license from the license from the funding, from the available schemes by the government is very rigorous. It's going to cause a widespread apathy to interested investors who have interest, who even have the funding to even go into it. But you cannot, no matter how successful you are or how wealthy you are, you cannot go into such a business and expect to expend all your personal funding into it. It is always very key to, share the risk, have other parties come to join forces with you, maybe the government, maybe the bank, such that you do not go with all your personal funding, and at the end of the day you don't you start to blame yourself. So it's just about having that enabling environment. I know BOI is doing a lot, but it's just taking a little time to be able to decipher the progress of what they are doing so far.
All right, one of the things that adds to the cost of production of cement is energy. Are there energy efficient technologies or other alternative source of fuel that can be used to reduce that burden?
Okay, so very sadly, you cannot do anything without power as a manufacturer. And where we are as a country is a country where a lot of I can boldly say that 90% of manufacturers still generate their power for these productions. And I cannot blame a manufacturer who is doing so much to generate his power. If you go around all the industries, all the manufacturing industries around Lagos, Abeokuta, because we have most of the cement industries in Abeokuta and the like, you will see that a lot of them have to generate their own power. And whether you like it or not, all that will go into the overall cost of a unit of a bag of cement. So the government also, whether you like it or not, has to come up with something in terms of generating, we are in a country where after 63 years of existence, of independence, we are struggling with so many things. We have housing deficits. We have infrastructure deficit. You cannot talk about infrastructure and not talk about power. Power is a very critical part of infrastructure. You cannot talk about infrastructure and not talk about good roads. Road accessibility is a very critical part to these productions. The reason why you have manufacturing industries like cement industries put themselves in outskirts of
Mr. Fah, the internet has played another trick, he was talking about, the cement production in Nigeria, what other incentives that can be done. I also feel the issue of power is critical,
Yes,
because there's
energy.
nothing you can do without, relying on power supply. Earlier we were talking about the cost of doing businesses in Nigeria. These are the factors, When you want to do production, there's what we call factor of production. Look at, some of the factors that will influence pricing, that will influence whether you're even going to stay in business or not. So the issue of power supply has been a challenge over the years. For any business owner in Nigeria, that's one of the worries you will have. In fact, you have to add to your daily operations. In fact, some resort to prayers. But the critical thing to do is to take steps. So because some of these people can't help the situation, so they have to generate their own sources. They have to go for generators, and I want to see how they can also, now that the president has signed the electricity bill, maybe that will give opportunity for private players to come into the sector. Not even maybe, that should be the ideal thing. So that if you have an industrial area, you don't have to depend on the national grid or that provision be made by the state. Within that location, within that estate, within that industrial area, a private investor can come in and provide for you independently your power supply. And what it means is it funds your operation. The arrangement, what it's in vogue now is for PACN to make arrangement with some of these industrial areas to decide the number of hours they're going to give them power per day. Some maybe 10 hours, some 15 hours. So within that period, they take advantage of the power supply from PHCN. But you must understand that a factory must operate for 24 hours. You know, in fact, the bulk of the production is done, you know, in the night, you know, whereby you have workers who stay overnight to prepare for the next day. So you need 24-hour sources or source of, you know, power, which for some people, they depend on generator, they buy different sets. So this will add to the cost of doing business, and it's also influencing the pricing, which is what Mustafa has been talking about. Alant is back with us, Mustafa. Glad to know you're back.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, as we're talking about deficits, we also have deficits with our network servicing companies. Well, it's good to be back. Thank you.
All right, please continue your thoughts. You were talking about how to address the energy issue with the production of cement. Are there other energy efficient technologies that can be used? You were also talking about infrastructure, the roads. Please continue your thoughts.
So very sadly, it is very difficult to have any other alternative form of generating power for manufacturing industries. You cannot use solar for manufacture. You cannot use inverter for manufacture, because the equipment you make use of are very heavy equipment that requires direct source from the mains, from the transformer, which is from NEPA or EKDC or whatever they call it themselves. So I think that for this to happen, I know a certain manufacturing industry, someone in Oba, that pays as high as 10 million around NEPA bill monthly, 10 million monthly. I can tell you for free that that company right now is closed down. They struggled and struggled and struggled. They were using all their profit to pay NEPA bills. All their profit. That company right now is shut down. They could not sustain it. They were manufacturing plastics. So, and we have many other companies like this too, who have practically been shut down because of overhead expenses. So you can imagine if you have to produce a few bags of cement and you have to spend 1 billion naira for production. If you are selling them, maybe you're making a profit of 300,000 naira. So first of all, you take away your 1 million naira for production, you have a profit of 300,000 naira, and you have another NEPA bill of 800,000 naira to pay. Obviously, you're going to be in deficit of about 500K already. So how do you? So you don't even have any profit. You are also in deficit of NEPA bill, and you also have to pay workers. So these are very critical issues. So power. So as long as manufacturers still continue to generate their own power for production, they cannot break even. It is not rocket science. They cannot break even. So the government also has to. So a lot of these things, because you cannot. This is a country where, whether you like it or not, the government who is supposed to be responsible for these things are not even paying so much attention. I recently got back from United Kingdom. I came back to the country last week for an holiday. You do not generate anything. The government provides everything 100%, from the housing to the water, even to the hot water that comes into your room, even to the hot water that enters your room. The government supplies it. To the hot water, to the cold water, you don't manufacture, you don't produce anything. The only time they get you cut off is when you owe bills. The government cuts off the hot water. But in Nigeria, you buy your own land, you make your own roads, generate your own water, generate your own power. I have an estate in Lekki here. After building the estate, we bought transformers. I bought transformer with my money. I bought transformers with my money. The government, the government or the power, like the NEPA or whatever they call themselves, have to come up to say that I have to now, the transformer I bought with my money, I have to now transfer the ownership back to NEPA before they can come and commission it. We're supposed to provide the transformer in the first place. It's a mini estate. NEPA is supposed to provide the transformer, but I have to buy the transformer. But the rules of engagement is that you have to transfer the ownership to NEPA in documents before they come and commission it. So these are issues that people are facing, manufacturers are facing. The government cannot provide transformer. Private people are doing it. But you have to commission it back to NEPA by in terms of ownership before they come out. So these are issues. So manufacturers are also faced with these problems. If there's no power, nothing can happen. If you like, have all the money in the world, have all the raw materials, have all the cement, have all the stones, have all the granite. If you do not have power, nothing can happen. In fact, the factory is as good as dead if there's no power. And so imagine a factory that has to run power 24 hours on alternative power. They have to run generators. And even the aspect of generator also is another topic of discussions. This is an area also that is very, very monopolized. Only few licensed people have the license to import generators, and these are very key stakeholders in the government.
All right. Let's hope there will be respite soon. Mustafa Ewinla, we must appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much for your intervention, talking extensively about cement production in Nigeria and what the federal government needs to do to improve on the production and distribution in Nigeria. Thank you so much for spending time with us on Early Exchange, Mustafa.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right, always a pleasure to be your host. Now we go on a short break. We'll go to the other dimension, looking at another issue related to cement production and distribution in Nigeria. That will take place after this short break.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, we just had a conversation with our special guest, Mustafa Ewinla, who talked about, the raw materials needed for cement production in Nigeria, the right policy, and also the position of the federal government, like a wake-up call to the federal government. And now we want to look at the impact of research, the impact of innovation, and we also want to look at the impact of technology or skills development when it comes to cement production in Nigeria. We want to find out if Nigeria has the right skills when it comes to manpower, the right kind of research that is needed for this industry. To shed more light on this, we are being joined by our in-house analyst, Dr. Osamanze Idahosa. Glad to have you join us, sir.
always a pleasure.
Welcome back.
To sit with Blessing here.
Welcome back.
So let's start with your wise counsel. We're looking at research and development. First, let's start with skills development. If we look at that industry in Nigeria, when it comes to cement production and distribution, do you think we have the right manpower when it comes to skills development, the right skills when it comes to local production? You have the big factories here. Yesterday you talked about the issue of skills gap. I'd like to have your take now that we're looking at cement production in Nigeria. What's your level of your assessment?
Well, at least to some extent, we have some skills that is available locally, as long as we still have to rely solely on expertise who really have the technology, which we don't have, and those are what we depend on, whether it's the big players or the small player. Everybody to some large extent is relying on some experts, really. And the kind of skills that you would naturally expect and what we can contribute those factory work, and then see how we can, how we are able to reproduce those people en masse. And of course, especially in a very dangerous industry like cement production. If you pass this through where cement is produced, you know that it's a very high risk production area.
Okay, at this point, before we continue in that thought, let's take a quick break and we'll continue after this time. Just stay with us.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's the Early Exchange, and we're looking at cement manufacturing in Nigeria. Joining us on discussion is Idahosa Osamanze, who is our in-house analyst here at SUK News. And we'll be looking at skills, development, research, and innovation as it concerns cement manufacturing in Nigeria. Before we went on the break, he was on a line of thought talking about expertise needed for cement production. Please continue.
Yeah, the point I was trying. In every industry, you have two kinds of technologies that comes in. You're talking about sustaining technology, you're talking about a completely disruptive technology. Now, when you look at that sector, what you seem to have is that we still be doing the way things are always being done, and there's not so much improvement. So it depends on the kind of skills that you're looking at. So even the factory skill, you may have them in abundance. But if they are technical skills, really, in terms of conceptualizing ideas on how to simplify a process and make it better, make it easier, then of course, that may be a huge challenge for us.
You've always talked about having this connection between the town and the gown, and having polytechnics address practical areas such as this. So, looking at cement production now, for instance, in what area would the polytechnics fit in? What would it need to, what courses or what practical lessons will be needed in polytechnics to ensure that the expertise, the technical expertise needed in cement production, for instance, we have them, and not just factory workers who will maybe be the loaders of the trucks, you know, doing this very menial aspects of it?
Well, I think there's a whole lot of area where collaborations can happen. Now, the first thing is that when you look at the technology, you're not just looking at, for example, machine alone, you're also looking at process simplifications. How do we get a limestone crushed and all these things? So this requires a whole lot of new disruptive technology, like I said. You remember, if you had read the philosophy of science in the school, you will remember the story of Alfred Nobel, one big scientist who actually created disruption in the quarry business in Italy at the time. He was someone who was not too endowed with good health, and therefore, as history says, he really didn't have any energy to do hard work. But he stayed in the laboratory thinking and processing things until he discovered the gunpowder, which eventually he also invented the technology called dynamite to be able to quarry rock. And it was said that once that technology was introduced in the rock business in Italy, then the price crashed. Because what people spend years trying to crack with hammer and iron, one day the explosive came into it, and then the whole market was flooded with rocks. So this is the kind of disruptive technology that is required, especially in the production. Because when you look at, on the average, you see that prices of cement, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, is quite expensive compared to what you have elsewhere. And what is actually the differentiator here? The differentiator is technology. And this is why all our research institutions, they had to be industry-based. We need, for example, the big player in the cement industry in Nigeria to have chairs in the university, specially endowed professors, whose job, for example, whether it's in the civil engineering department of the university, and that all they study is cement technology. And they are saying, how do we simplify this process? How do we make it better such that it will reduce costs in the longer run? So we look at the cost components and elements in this process, and we're saying, what do we need to take out? What can we add to it? How do we make the system easier and cheaper? Now, if you have that study consistently going on in the institutions of learning, you find that people will come out with groundbreaking ideas that will help this process. Like I said of Alfred Nobel, you will be able to crash the price, and then, of course, housing become affordable. Because like you said in the earlier program, you see the deficit in terms of housing in Nigeria from 7 million in 1991 to about 28 million in 2023. So this gap is widening on a daily basis, and people must have decent houses to live, and you need cement to do this thing. So it must be very critical to us, and this is where we are failing in terms of our educational institutions, where our curriculums are not tailored to solving problems. Giving people certificates to go and chase out for white-collar job. Now, if we are solution-driven, we would have seen that in the housing industry, for example, with a 28 million housing deficit, we should be able to concentrate all our energy in seeing how to address this issue. We cannot address it from one single perspective of financing. There had to be an integration of both research, finance, and the technology to drive that process. And I think that's where the lag is for us as a people.
All right, we need to go on another break now. We're due for one. When we return, our conversation related to research and skill development on cement production and distribution will kick off. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souk News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time,
make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souk News. Here's the Souk News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souk News. Thank you very much.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, it's abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's still Early Exchange, and for us, we are shaping policy with our conversation. Today, we're looking at cement production and distribution, and we're still looking at the aspect of research, the aspect of skills development. And as usual, our in-house analyst, Dr. Idahosa, is still here with us in the studio. Now, let's look at the issue of research. I know you're very passionate when it comes to the issue of research. Now, talk to us, how much of research should we do, as a nation? Some of the research institutes in Nigeria, they always complain about the issue of funding because research has to deal with a lot of hard work, which involves money and funding. Now, talking about cement production, if we're going to go forward or go to where we should be, we should have the right data, the right research. So talk to us. Who should fund this research? Who should embark on this research? And what framework or formality will it take in order to help this industry?
Yeah, I already had made that point earlier on. One person can't fund research. Even the industry players themselves say they have to be much more interested in this research than even the academicians. So that synergy is what is quite missing. Because some of all these issues we are talking about here, research is always not about money. And I think that's a mistake that most Nigerians make. They think that, research requires too much of money. I don't think it's as expensive as the way we paint the picture. You see, research is to find out. What it requires is to see those who are in the academics come to look at your processes. See how this thing is done. Look at the critical success factors. Look at the possible hindrances or obstacles that makes, for example, mass production become difficult. Where is actually the labor centered? Now, once these processes are studied, then you are now looking at, first and foremost, conceptualizing models on how these things should be solved. It starts by design. You use pen and paper to draw these processes, articulate it, and then what do? You go to incubate some of these ideas. And that's why today, really, you see what people are talking, especially there's a global structure they call the Farm Lab, which, of course, tend to integrate both knowledge lab and then fabrication lab together. That people are thinking and they are conceptualizing ideas. And then, of course, on the other hand, you're also having a fabrication department where you can actually test this idea to see whether they are running. That's what should happen. Now, when you go to other clients where things are working well, you see this synergy happens virtually almost seamlessly. If you're doing, for example, a master degree in electronics engineering, you would have designed a model, because what you are just going to produce is a prototype. Now, when you have a prototype, industry comes to buy the prototype and mass produce it, if it is economically viable. You see, it is that point of viability that we are looking at. That people say, oh, I have an idea. But you are looking at the idea that you are bringing on table, and somebody is thinking, how much more money do I need to invest in this idea? And if I invest X amount on this idea, what am I going to get back? You see, because I hear people talk about it and say, oh, we have a very brilliant idea. All we don't have is money. You see, if you have a solution that has been provided for, and it is that area you are having an idea, and that idea you have is not better than what is already existing in the industry. Now, you will not expect a business person to put money to duplicate something that will not sell. And this is why when you see the trend globally, you see, people set out to do particular thing. What is this popular brand in Japan that is producing these cooking pots and all these things? Started up to see how to make the cooking of rice seamless, because the staple that Japan eats was rice. Now, he attended that technology, it was a disaster. It didn't sell as he expected. Now, he went back into the laboratory and thinking processes, and that's where almost all the electronics you are seeing today, they're all coming out from research. So, but we make it like as if it's you want to do research and say, oh, you the whole money in the whole world, you must put it in one bucket and then start to do research. But one of the things I see within the academic circles is the fact that give them money to go and do research. The first thing they do is to first buy a very cozy car, build a very cozy office, but this does not make for research. The world race just to search out again. You don't need to travel too far to be able to search something. All we need to do is that you see, they have a chair, for example, for a professor, and all that that professor does is only cement, for example. That's all it's concerned. Yes, the other part of building civil technology that are there isn't going to be concerned, because the factory here is looking at how can we make this process simpler, how can we make it better. So all it does is looking at that and thinking of models that can be adopted to make this system seamless, and then people can get into it. But what we do here is also, oh, research is not funded, research is not funded, research is not funded, as if it's every research you have to travel. As if it's every research that you will need money to buy things to put in place. First of all, design the model. Let it theoretically work first, before prototypes are built. You have to first of all do these phases. Now, we don't see models. And people are asking for money for prototype building. That's where the effort here is not yielding much result as we expect. What you are looking out for is to look at it, what is currently on ground, and what can we do to make it better. Take, for example, oh, some people say, oh, you see, if you go to Niger Delta, you see technology, somebody has developed a refining technology in PTI, in University of Port Harcourt. But the question you have to ask is that, can this technology or this new invention compete with what is already in existence? Because it's wanting to have a technology that the cost of buying that technology becomes so expensive that if you want to put your whole life on it, the product that you're already importing that is as small as you are calling the price now, the money you will be paying to buy it becomes too much. These are the issues that people must realize in terms of making the kind of impact is here. It's therefore to develop model to see that, like Professor Kuhn says in his work, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, science does not grow linear. Science is disruptive. We should be able to say, oh, this is the current technology in the industry. What can we do differently to make this technology, which is currently in vogue, obsolete tomorrow? But what we are doing here is that we are copying the old technology and we cannot even perfect it as it is currently in use. And we say we have found something. For you to find something, it should be better than what is in existence elsewhere, that the whole world will be looking towards you and they will want to invest in it and they will buy it. And all these things are possible everywhere. There are a lot of people who are groundbreaking here in Nigeria, and Nigeria, of course, could not fund it. And you see people from, just like people scout for footballers. Institutions globally are also scouting for ideas that can make processes simpler, make work done easier, and this is where we have the challenge. But look at it, for example, I don't think there's any university, for example, that is offering a course on cement technology. We may have building technology, but that particular area, which is an aspect of building, I don't think there's so much energy that is concentrated on it that we say what we're doing here, we look at this as critical ingredient to building, and somebody is doing a serious research about it and see how do we, are there even other materials apart from limestone that can be used to produce cement? So all these things are issues that we need to interrogate and see how to bring down the price. And this is what the people in the other climes are doing. And they're looking at prices so high and they're saying, what are the alternatives available? And then people are searching and they are finding out.
All right, two things. One, you talked about we not having any university that handles cement manufacturing or cement production or cement technology in Nigeria. So that brings me to the question of competence. Is this something that the research that we're talking about to enhance cement manufacturing, can it be localized? Or would we need to do some form of partnering in enhancing that? And we know that as of today, the major raw material for cement production is limestone. Does it look sustainable, or something that in the near future we may run out of its deposits?
Yeah, but you see, this is what I'm saying. This has evolved over the years. From the ancient Egyptians up to where we are. The technology has consistently evolved. The material used is also evolving. Now, this evolution is what we really need to key into and see how we can make things really better. And that's what I'm saying. The major ingredient talk about is limestone, for example, and you have to quarry and to quarry. Yeah, of course, you also know that limestone is non-renewable source. It's not going to be there forever. Yes, we may still have a large deposit of it today, but we must also be looking at what alternative material can we use in place of limestone. This is where the investigations and the research needs to be done. That the academics now looking at it and say, oh, everybody is talking about non-renewable source and all these things. And you are seeing even in other clients, people are already dovetailing even into using crude waste in producing all manners of things, even including plastics. How are we going to turn this into use? You go to Malaysia today, people are using carnel shells for construction of roads as new technology. So these are the things that we must be looking at. That's why I said today, the trend in entrepreneurial study today is about effectuation. How do we use what we have within us to create value, as it were? So if we are always thinking that things are going to be there, chances are that they will not be there forever. So we must be looking at, as after limestone, what else? I don't think the building of houses starts with limestone. It only progressed to that level. Now, for us here, which is the biggest problem with the industry practitioners, is that they make all the profits, they divest all the profit, and they don't invest in the process. If you go abroad, you see big corporations having chairs in universities. I can go to University of Lagos and say, for example, Department of Civil Engineering. You are having all the big industry players there, having chairs there. What's the meaning? It's just that you have dedicated a certain part of your profit to a particular person or people within that institution. You are giving them all the comfort they need, the salary they will require, and sponsoring the research effort to ensure that they help your industry. But you also see these business people who are making profit from the rest of us, enjoying waivers and the rest of it, also are talking about government not funding research. This is where the issues are. The industries must be interested. Not just in cement alone, every other industries. Lawyers should be interested in the quality of people who come out of the universities. Accountants or who are practicing auditors, they should be interested in the quality of the people who come out from the institutions. And therefore, they must invest in those institutions, whatever profit that they are making. Not just CSR here and there, but it's to ensure that, look, what we currently do, we want to get it better. Because the world is not waiting for anybody. If there's a breakthrough in technology in Nigeria today that has not been seen anywhere else in the world will come to Nigeria to buy it. Because like I said earlier this morning, people want good things. They want simple life. They don't want trouble. And anybody who can find that solution, the world will embrace. It doesn't matter what your color look like. So this is where we really need to see, as the people, invest in our capacities, capacity building and development, and see how our institutions can begin to produce groundbreaking models that can challenge any model anywhere in the world.
All right, talking about production, Nigeria is the largest producer of this product, cement, in Africa or West Africa, But you see this irony playing out about the pricing. In other, neighboring countries, the price of cement is cheaper compared to where it's being produced in Nigeria. Is the scenario playing out? And it's funny. What do you think is likely responsible for this? And then what kind of intervention will you expect to make this kind of scenario, not something to write home about anymore?
Well, I think the real issue here is the value that people get for what they have. And businessmen too, many businessmen, business people here are also opportunists. So we are opportunistic to the extent that we artificially create some glut in the system. And when there is scarcity, we can attribute it to so many things. Your warehouse could be full, but you're just waiting to see how price can go up. Because like they say, anytime price go up in Nigeria, it doesn't come down. So this is a problem that we also have to face. And don't also forget the fact that, like I said yesterday, because every time we're talking about the cost of doing business in Nigeria, the question is always looking elsewhere. But there are also very people issue, like I mentioned yesterday, that we also will need to improve on. You go to some places, and they want to sell an artwork to you, they put the price in there, and they say the price of this thing is 2,000. Many of our stores, you don't see prices. And this is also to create room for negotiation and bargaining. So you could come to a place and you buy it for S amount, and you go to another place, you put some margin on top of it, and you are going to buy it higher. So prices all across, they are not actually at the same rate. But you say because their voices are very loud, because of the power they command, competitions are not allowed in that industry. They tell you that if you allow competition in the industry, local production will die. People will lose employment. That's always the argument. So you leave your faith in the life of people who form themselves into agency and determine what price they want to sell. But you imagine, for example, we allow cement to come from Europe into Nigeria to compete, just as we are competing in other African countries. That's a difference in terms of pricing. So because it's not only us that is supplying them, Europe is also bringing product to those countries. So if they have to play well in that country, they have to compete, because nobody is going to give them monopoly. But here they are monopolized. Even when you have small player, because everybody is forming themselves into guilds and associations to determine what price they want to sell, because they don't have option. There's no other product you are going to see. But if other people are allowed to come, and that's why I keep saying, government is about facilitating business. Open the door, let people compete. So if they have the wherewithal to compete, they compete. If they don't have wherewithal to compete, somebody swallow them up. So this, for me, is where the real issues lie. And that's why the pricing are different across board. Because if you go to, for example, the French-speaking, you see they allow product to come from other countries. Plus what is also coming. Because the way they allow your own to come into their country, they're also allowing other people country to come, product to come to their country. So there's competition. So when there's competition, it's either, like I said yesterday, you are playing either on differentiation or you are deliberately playing on price. So these are the two factors that will tell how competitive you are going to be. If your price is as cheap as possible, and then of course you have the same quality, people will come to buy from you. But if it's higher and there's nothing different from the competitor's product, then of course nobody comes to patronize you. So this is what government is willing to do, to facilitate rather than encourages, restrictions, control, and empowering only some few at the expense of the majority of the rest of us.
Okay, there is need for market expansion because the demand for cement keeps increasing. People want to own houses. Government also is into infrastructure development, so they are also consumers of cement. So what can be done? You've given the example of the other African countries that Nigeria exports to, allowing a free market. So because there are different suppliers, there is competition. But in a case like Nigeria, if we allow that, would that not be killing the local manufacturing? So what can be done to expand the markets, given the background that the cost of production is a challenge still?
Well, we continue to support the local manufacturer. Then the housing deficit continues to increase. More people become homeless. People are not having access. Yeah, that's what we prefer. You see, because these are issues that go beyond one individual, really. Is to ask yourself, what do we really want? What is the business of government? It's to make life easy and simple for people. Take, for example, Nigerian Housing Fund. Have people who contribute, and until they will leave service, they can never buy a house or build one, because the cost is on the rooftop. So government must be working and see how, if these people cannot compete, then of course if you don't want to bring them, go and meet people who has this capacity and say, come and set up factory in our place.
Would they not battle with the same issues that the local manufacturers are dealing with?
There is no any issue local manufacturer is battling with that is not being battled anywhere. Energy is expensive everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. It's not only Nigeria, energy is expensive. You see, because we only think that we are the only people with problems. We are not the only people with problems. The day we start to facilitate trade, and remove all hindrances, all encumbrances, and allow free trade, market forces to determine price, we will be better off as a people. Because a lot of people want to do business with us. The real reason people are not coming to invest here, and they are investing in smaller places around us, is the fact that we have too much of control on how business is done. So we are not facilitating it. And this happens at the point of procurement. And that's why I say to you, UAE don't have a single car manufacturing industry, but car is cheaper in UAE than anywhere else in the world. Why? Because they have been able to negotiate with manufacturer and say, this is what we want, and this is at what price we want to buy. And if you give us, this is incentive you can get. So you bring in your money into our country, you take it out wholesale. Corporate tax is zero. Make all the profit that you can. So what happened? The prices of car in the UAE come down. This is facilitation. Who is better off for it? How many Emiratis are working? They stay in their house and have the best of life. They travel all across the world, and life is easy and good for them. And they are clapping for their government. But here we are defending a very few cabals who are becoming richer and richer at the expense of the majority of the people. And we are saying, oh, we are protecting local production. We don't want our industry to die. This is not an argument in a globalized world today. And I think what global players are doing, everybody is facilitating, opening their doors so that people can have free access to trade, get things where you can get it cheaper, and then, of course, live a decent life without paying sacrifices that you cannot even reap its reward in your lifetime, which is what we have been doing, tightening belt. We are tightening belt, and our intestines are cutting.
All right. Talking about tightening, let's look at the industry itself. One of the factors creating that is the issue of monopoly. Let's go back there. There are few names, few individuals who have dominated our industry by the virtue of their influence, the power they have, and their wealth. Now, what has been the impact of that on the industry? And then how do we decentralize this so that you can give, equal opportunity, equity to those people who are capable? Talking about the policy to put in place to ensure that you have more players, even at the state level, individuals coming into this space, because you realize that the materials are available across Nigeria in states. State players could come into this sector, but because of this monopoly, it's a force to reckon with. What can be done in this regard?
Well, I think we're already moving toward that direction. The current regime is very clear about its economic focus. It's a capitalist regime. We are not running in any way socialism, where we have to protect certain few individuals at the expense of the other. The president has said it over and over. And that's why he's moving all around, and every opportunity he has to have gone to the world is saying to them, Nigeria is open for business, come and do business with us. We have removed all the barriers. We have removed all the restrictions. And as long as we have removed this restriction, then we can actually facilitate trade. And there nobody is unduly protected at the expense of the other thing. Now, like I said, what is needed is that if you are in competition, you have to find a way to compete. In management, it's clear there are two ways to compete. It's either you differentiate or you play with price. So the local players can do that. So if it is to service bigger companies that are coming, they will be doing, they can be gaining value from it. And then learn their technology over time to compete with those industries. That's the way things evolve. But the way we want it is that, and this is, we are representing our people, we have to make law. If this thing come in, it will destroy what we are happening here. And when you are happening here, cannot even employ your people because you don't have capacity. And you are not allowing people with capacity to come do business with you. So you are creating a whole lot of, encumbrances to free trade. And you cannot trade with your external partner. You can only trade with yourself. I said it here yesterday. Even the Holy Book recognizes it, that the only way that nation prosper is through export, not importation. Now, we don't have that capacity to export. And we don't even want to grow it. Now, the only way to grow that capacity is to interact with other people and see what they are doing and learn from what they are doing. And then you build a system that even can become better than what they have.
All right, good enough that we have at least export potential and export capacity to a certain extent in the area of cement, being the largest exporter of cement to other African countries. But going forward, looking at this, there are different types of houses now being built. It's not just only houses built with cement. The last time we talked about housing deficits, a real estate developer here talked about the different kinds of houses using renewable materials. And if you even go to some organizations, some government organizations, you find that they've used some of those other materials apart from cement to build structures. How would that impact on the cement industry over time?
You see, to talk about the export potentials. You see, when you are selling cement in small country with population that are less than 10 million, what's the size of market really? Have we really been able to penetrate the big markets like South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, where we can actually gain value. So export that will give you value is to go to people who are the wherewithal to buy, not even people that you are better than. That's the point I'm making. That we should be able to compete in Europe, we should be able to compete in Asia, we should be able to compete in America. Because God has given us the natural resources. What we just need is the appropriate and right technology. We have people also, which means cheap labor, to make this product globally competitive. Africa is a small market. Africa as a whole. What's our fraction in terms of world trade? How much do we contribute to world trade? In cement, we are not doing up to 1%. So if you are looking at this data, you see that we are really not doing well. And I'm saying the real issue is because we are not even allowing ourselves to grow. They used to say in my village that if you eat only your mother's soup, you will think that your mother is the best cook in the whole world.
Okay, let's take it from eating, not eating only your mother's soup. Now, we have 3 major manufacturers of cement in Nigeria. They're in not just Nigeria, but also some African countries. And there are just a few new entrants, but they've not been able to get a large part of the market. What would bring us to the extent of having that door open for us internationally? Let's look at standards. And then let's look at how we can begin to also have a taste of other people's soup without throwing away us or killing the capacity of us to continue cooking.
Let me give you one example from one industry, the paint industry in Nigeria. Do you realize that the big paint industries, they are all struggling to survive? You go to the foam industry. The big foam manufacturers, they are struggling to survive. Because we are having local regional players who don't want to play in everywhere. They are only concentrating their operation in their own local space. So by the time you take logistics away, the price of the product becomes cheaper. And as long as it's serving the same purpose, the locals will buy what they have. That's what the small players need to do. And they can actually take the big players off the market. And this monopoly will be broken. You see, you don't need haulage so much. What you are doing, you are just producing for one small market and ensure that the quality is the same. By the time they subtract the cost of moving from one factory, maybe in Ewekoro, to your place, and add the cost of transportation, the cost of this one, everything to it, you will find that your price will almost be 1/4 cheaper than what is coming. And every businessman, everybody who want to buy things that are reasonably very cheap. And this is the way to compete. And this is what those elite ones need to do. They don't need to fight and be as big as the big player. They only need just to be strategic and stay within their space and sell within their space and then enjoy it as long as it lasts.
All right, let's leave the discussion here. On this note, we have to call it a wrap. Dr. Idauza Samazi, we must appreciate you for your intervention and your submission. Know that the federal government needs to do more, and you've set the pace on what they need to do. The essence of our conversation is to shape policy and advance development. So we've set the narrative for the federal government and individuals and other stakeholders. Let's see what will come out of it. Thank you so much for your time and your commitment, as always.
We should not be afraid to do business. Business is global. People make profit anywhere. We should not be afraid of competition. Competition makes you better and stronger, and we must be ready to face it. And that's the only way we can make a name for ourselves.
I love the father. You always wrap up this discussion with a soundbite. That's good. Thank you so much. Blessing?
Yes, it's been a wonderful show talking about the cement industry in Nigeria. We do hope that, yes, in no distant time, there will be competition, fair competition that will open rooms for other players to come in. And the aim is that at least it will crash the prices. It will be affordable for everyone who needs it to own a home or create some form of development somewhere.
All right, on that note, we'll call it a wrap on Early Exchange today. Don't forget Business Insider is coming up next with Adesua. You know, it's not so a program, you just have to stay there and enjoy the program. Don't forget you can do a catch-up on our YouTube channel, on our social media platform at Soup News to get an update. Like I always say, the conversation continues, and this continues on our social media. Thank you so much for being with us. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.